Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Leppy Duels. It's week 18. We are once again presented by Jarvie Media, and I am still your host, Jacob Arvidsson. Thanks for being with us. Before we get rolling this week, we've got a giveaway to announce from 2 weeks ago in episode 17. Our winner is Alone in My Hobbies. Thanks so much for participating. Shoot us a message down below. We've got this fantastic looking LHDGC custom belt for you, along with a signed hat from the 2022 Skins match at Leprechaun Hollows. Thanks again for participating. We appreciate it. Here's how the show works if you haven't been here before. In a moment, we will meet our 4 distinguished guests. Each of those guests will go 1v1 with the other 3 contestants within each duel. Each contestant will have 1 minute to deliver their points on the assigned debate topic, along with an additional 20 seconds to respond to their opponent's comments. I, as the host, will determine a winner of each duel, and the first one to fill up their scoring bar wins the episode. Simple enough. Let's meet this week's guests. First up, joining us for the first time ever, his debut on Leppy Duels, Latitude 64's touring professional, Kevin Kiefer. Second guest this week hails from Texas. Returning for the second week in a row, it's Mr. Matt Stillwagon. Our third guest this week is the brand manager at Latitude 64 and multi-time tour-winning champion caddy, Seth Fendley. And finally, rounding out the cast this week, he's the captain of Team Discraft Underground, warming up for the CCR Open in just a couple weeks, Mr. Wes Shinevar. Thanks for joining us, all 4 of you guys. I am pumped to see you go at it. First topic of debate. We had a lot going on this past weekend. I want you to pick your most surprising story from the weekend. Kevin, you're up first.
All right, so I think the obvious choice here is Parker Welch, right? Going from being 112th ranked in the world to averaging 1054 at an Elite Series and taking it down. Not only that, but he beat Calvin Heimberg, who is, considerably the best in the sport right now, and also having his best season to date. So Parker Welch getting first place, best finish of his career, and I think that's definitely the just biggest. Well, I forget what it was called, but the biggest wow factor of this week and the biggest upset and surprise. I don't think it'll ever happen again. Also, that's another hot take: is someone winning ranked outside of 100th in the world, and then also Seth, stop laughing. Seth is killing me over here. But also being ranked 10-10, I'm pretty sure that's the lowest person to ever win an Elite Series. Colton Montgomery was the next closest at 10-13. So, yeah.
All right, good take, Kevin, for your first ever Leppy Duels debate. Seth, you're laughing at him. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so Kevin's right that Parker is the easy choice, right? And so I'm going to take the not so easy choice in that, but the one that blew up social media, and that was spectators, right? Dynamic Disc Open is seen as one of the hotbeds of disc golf. It's seen as in some cases, the Disneyland of disc golf. And the reality is that the crowds did not show up this weekend. And I think part of that we can attribute very easily to the lack of an AM side. Usually the amateurs come out in 1,000 plus to this tournament to compete, but then also spectate. And, it's an experiment this year. They wanted to see what it would be like to have the Dynamic Disc Open, sort of similar to Worlds last year where there was only a pro side. And we can say safely that experiment didn't really pay off. And so I think that we'll see changes for next year. But I think that was the biggest surprise. To Kevin's points, Parker is an anomaly, but I do think that someone at the 10-10 area could win. Keep in mind that Johnny McRae, the ageless wonder, was under 10-10 just recently, and he could still go out there and beat the best of them. So I think there's plenty of options to see that sort of cream rise to the top.
Okay, so Seth goes definitely outside the box on this one. Kevin, you're sticking hard to the biggest story this weekend, to be honest. So double down on that for me and defend yourself from Seth's take if you can.
Well, I think the first thing to point out, and you kind of already said it, was, I feel like Emporia kind of exhausted the disc golfers in Kansas City and Emporia with having Worlds there and then also having a big DDO. and then not having the AM side. So I wasn't all that surprised when the spectators didn't show up this week. I mean, if you've already been to it twice last year, I wouldn't be surprised if people were thinking take off. Also, it's a big fact when we don't have the Paul McBeth playing in the tournament. Music City, for example, didn't sell any tickets until Paul McBeth signed up for it. I think they literally sold like some crazy amount of tickets, like $5,000 in tickets when Paul signed up. So for them not to pull that many spectators this week, I wasn't too surprised. I can agree that Parker, that is an anomaly. Like that's going to happen in our sport. The Outlanders are going to win once in a while, but to this extreme, I don't know if we'll ever see it this extreme again. 112th ranked in the world. That's just unbelievable almost.
Seth, he fired back strong at your take. Go ahead and bring this home. Can you win the opening duel?
Yeah, so historically, Music City has actually been one of the lowest attended events in all of the Pro Tours. So saying that Music City, doesn't sell tickets until McBeth shows up, that's not surprising. But also at the same time, they still had lower ticket sales than the Dynamic Disc Open did this year. So it's not even close. And then in regards to Parker, I think that at the end of the day, as we see more parity in the field, we're going to see more people like this who don't have an opportunity to get good ratings and still be able to pop off. I think the easiest example of this outside of the one I've already given is our European friends. We know that European ratings are lower than ratings out in the US. And so when we have those European players come over, there still stands a chance that they're going to come out and win and do that over what would be higher rated players.
Good stuff from both of you. Kevin, well done in your opening debate. I think you both took interesting points. Seth, I love what you said because you're segueing us into our next debate with Wes and Matt. But we'll get to that in a second. We got to decide a winner here first. I think in his inaugural debate, Kevin edged you out. I thought he gave great reasons on his rebuttal as to why it wasn't that surprising. And the question remains, what was the most surprising result from this past weekend? He went with Parker, and he told us why no spectators wasn't as surprising to him. So, Kevin, congratulations on your first win on Leppy Duels. Let's transition to number 2 debate, Wes and Matt. Wes, you're going to be up first. Seth already talked about it. The lack of spectators this past weekend at DDO. Was it a good move splitting the AM and pro sides of the event to different weekends? And, what's your take on that, Wes?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because it is a Disc Golf Pro Tour event, and we're an A tier that, are looking to get to the Disc Golf Pro Tour level, ideally to the Silver Series level. And so at some point you kind of have to evaluate your staff and your courses and what you have available. And if they just simply didn't have enough people to do a great job with the AM side and the elite job that they need to do with the pro side, then at that point it makes sense to split them. I think Seth made some interesting points in the last argument, and I think Kevin did as well about, maybe people being burned out in the area. But I think it comes down to what the tournament director and the event staff feel that they can handle. And if you feel that you have the staff and you can do the AM side and the pro side, and you can still do that extremely high-level job for the pros, because you have basically the best pros that are in the U.S. are all at this event. It needs to be a premium event that runs flawlessly and smooth for those pros. I think that's the bigger focus. And so I think that was probably their direction this year, was to run a kind of world's level event. And so they split the AM side weekend and the pro side weekend so that they could really focus in on the pros and do a good job for them.
Okay, Matt, your turn. What's your take on this one?
Okay. I think it was a bad idea to split them. Very simple. But I'm going to take this a little bit of a different direction. I think there's a lesson to be learned here that disc golf has not figured out yet. You can't charge the prices that you charge for these tickets and exclude the AMs who make up the majority of the player base. Disc golf, from a visual standpoint, the spectators are primarily disc golfers. Until this sport figures out how to get the guy who's in town with his family of 4, who happens to be going through Emporia looking for something to do with the family, and get him to spend $20 per person to get in and watch a quality disc golf event, you're going to just fail when you split the AMs, alienate the AMs, and leave them paying the prices that they want to pay to spectate. I love the product. We're just not there. This is not the way to do it.
Okay, Wes, so he did definitely take a different spin on it. Go ahead and respond to Matt's statements and double down on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the end, it probably seemed like a good idea, right? I think that as a TD myself that runs a big A tier, if we were to get on the Pro Tour, we would probably look at potentially splitting our weekends too, so we could really focus in on the pros and doing the absolute best job that we can for them. In hindsight, not having those 1,000 AMs, because Emporia just draws a ton of amateur players, a little bit different than our area, but there's so much disc golf going on in Emporia. You get all those people in, they're looking to do stuff, they're looking to go spectate and watch Calvin. I have to imagine, although Parker probably didn't have a lot of fans going into this, that last round would have been really highly spectated because it was exciting to see that battle go out. And so I think that after the event, we can say that it was a bad move. Seth mentioned that in his debate as well, and I think I agree with him on this one. The proof was in the pudding. When you saw that last putt fall, there was not. They looked like there was maybe 20 or 30, I don't know, 40 spectators or something like that versus the hundreds that we've seen in the past. So in the end, bad move. They're not going to do that again.
Matt, bad move, you said. Do you think they'll go back and change it in the future?
Therein lies the question. I think it'd be foolish for them not to. Unfortunately, I think there is going to be this push, this bigger and better push, and I like the bigger and better, but I don't think they're going to do it. I think they may reevaluate it, maybe put one of them, maybe stagger it somehow so that they get better participation on the AM side, but I think that's as close as you're going to get. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, my son won Worlds out there in 2013. I love the place. The courses are great, but you can't exclude the AMs because that's why it's a Disneyland. I mean, to the pro that coming through town, if you throw their stuff, you're stopping by the store anyways.
Good point there, Matt, to finish. Wes, I think from you, the thing I liked what you said was, comparing it to CCR, your own flagship event, saying, hey, this is something, if we got onto the Pro Tour, we might have considered. Now that you've seen that, maybe things have changed in your mind, maybe not. But I think that's a nice little insight into the mind of a TD and why maybe they were thinking along the lines that they were. Matt, I think as far as this debate is concerned, though, I'm going to give you the win here. I think the point on the ticket prices and whatnot is going to give you the edge here. I think you had a couple more points to back up why it was a bad move at the end of the day. So Matt takes duel number 2, sends us to duel number 3. Wes, you're back up. Seth, you're going to be up first. We are debating live coverage. We've seen Europe now have live coverage. We've obviously seen it in the United States for a couple years now. Now that both continents have some live coverage going through the Pro Tour, who's done it better in your opinion, Seth?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because the question doesn't necessarily distinguish between who the coverage provider is, right? And so right now in Europe, there's 2 different live products that you can watch. And if you're watching the Euro Tour live coverage, the reality is that it's the same producers and the same camera ops to some extent as what you're seeing in the United States. And so I think to compare and say which one's better is really hard to do when it's the same exact people, right? These past 2 weekends, Mahmoud Barani and Sam Gaddis have been over in Europe, making sure that the broadcasts for the Euro Tour are on the same level that the Disc Golf Network is. The one cool thing that we got to see was the Pulsea studio, where they're broadcasting commentary from that just seems to be light years ahead of what is happening in the United States with their on-the-ground commentary. And so I think, if anything, you're looking at the European side as sort of the trendsetters, but at the end of the day, those 2 are the same product. The only other sort of wild card is the European Pro Tour, which I think has a comparable setup, but probably isn't watched as much as the Disc Golf Network.
Okay, Wes, you're up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Euro side on this, and it's hard for me as I was thinking about this question as to if I really felt like the European side was better, because as Seth mentioned, there are some commonalities between the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the guys that are helping out there, and I don't know if it was just because it was something different, it was new. But I really love that studio. That studio was flashy. I definitely think that's something that we really need to pull back here. I thought just every time they popped over to the guys in the studio, it was visually interesting, even if you've already seen it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It was just such a cool studio. But I also really liked the two guys that they had on commentary over there. I thought it was a change of pace, kind of from the commentary that we have here, and not necessarily that it was a lot better or a lot worse or anywhere in between, but it was just something that was a little bit different, and it was really fun to be able to consume that from them. And also, I thought that the times being a little bit different was kind of cool too. It really flowed nicely with what was going on here in the U.S. that weekend. You were able to watch disc golf pretty much all day, so just the combination of everything led me to enjoying the Euro coverage a little bit more.
Okay, Seth, respond to Wes's comments and add anything you need to add.
Yeah, so I think that the one thing that Wes sort of didn't address, which I also didn't address towards the very end, is the fact that there's two different products coming out of Europe, which in general means that there's going to be stronger competition between the two to push it to be better, right? And at the end of the day, what we're seeing is that the Pulsea guys knew what they were going up against whenever they stepped into the booth, and so they sort of upped the ante compared to what the European Pro Tour is putting out to make that product a little bit better. I do think the one thing that stands out that really didn't get addressed, Wes talks about the times. The reality is that for the European Pro Tour, we haven't really paid attention to it because it hasn't been something that's been in our app, right? We're all, as a US based viewership, we're all watching the Disc Golf Network. Well, now that it's in our app, we know that those times are there. And the one thing that did help to sort of propel that this week is that there was a lightning delay that pushed Konopiste back on one of the days to significantly closer to when we were live, which I think isn't going to play out as much in the future, but it was something that did help elevate that viewership.
Well said, Seth. Wes, bring it home.
Yeah, I think, again, just kind of the product, as Seth keeps mentioning, is very similar. And so I think you have to kind of look at, which product was more enjoyable, because they are so similar. And I again, for me, the European product was just a little bit more enjoyable. There was a lot of new names that I have trouble pronouncing, but a lot of new names and new faces, which I found really exciting. We have a lot of, new names popping up here in the U.S., but you also have a lot of guys that you kind of know, and you sort of know their shots, you know what they're going to throw on different things. And so I just thought it was really cool to get to see really talented disc golfers from a different part of the world, different commentary, be able to kind of flow those times together. Just all around, really enjoyed everything that the Euro coverage had to offer.
So at the end of the day, you both kind of said Euro coverage, and I could go both ways on this. Seth kind of danced around making a choice between the two in his initial statement. Wes came out hard and firing right away when it was his turn, saying, yeah, the Euro coverage was better. Whether it was different or not, it was better in my mind. So for that reason, that decisiveness, I'm going to give Wes the edge here in duel number 3. Sends us to duel number 4, and that is going to be between Kevin and Matt. Kevin's going to be up first. We're talking about disc golf teams again. Are teams in disc golf overrated with it being a individual sport, Kevin?
I'm going to go ahead and say the statement now. No, they are not overrated. And I'm going to follow that up with, I don't think we have enough of it. We get it with the All-Stars, we get it with the President's Cup here and there, but we really just don't see enough of it. And I feel like we don't get enough personality from the players when we get these team events and when we get these big events in general. We get to watch these players throw, we get to watch these players in interviews, but I think that the next level we need is this connection with the players. I think that having this team event, we get to see the chemistry with the players versus other players in the team events and the team events forward. And I think that the sport needs to probably add 2 or 3 more of those in the year, and even make it qualifying to where it's either doubles events along with team events. And I also think it just adds a little bit more level of kind of love into the sport that we don't really have because it's so much just solo. And I feel like we need a little bit more of that personality with the chemistry between players on a team.
Okay, I love the take there, Kevin. Matt, is our teams overrated in disc golf?
All right, so I somewhat agree with Kevin, but I definitely disagree in one area. I think the team aspect as it is right now is very stiff. It's very not welcoming. I would like to see different kinds of competitions, more than just doubles. I'd like to see them choose some different formats. There are a lot of formats that make disc golf interesting and keep people interested that go beyond singles, doubles. I'd like to see them mix it up. I'd also like to see more of a state representation and do individual states with groups of players. Let's find out who the best states are, not just the ones that have the most courses.
All right, Kevin, respond to those comments and add anything else you need to add.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the idea of having like a state regional like tournament to qualify for that and then go past that. I also think something that we're really lacking is like coaching in the sport, and to have like a team to be able to build off of each other would just be huge. And then yeah, I agree with the aspect of like doubles and all that, but like I think it's just too hard even with teams to get it on like the pro tour. It might just need to be something like GK Skins does to get it out there. I just don't see the pro tour really promoting it. I think there is a niche for teams inside of disc golf. I just don't really see it coming into fruition anytime soon. It might be something down the road that GK or maybe even Gatekeeper or like one of the smaller YouTube channels kind of grabs onto and tries to promote into like its own little tour, own little thing outside of that follows the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
I love it, Kevin. Matt, you are back up to finish this.
I'll make this rebuttal very simple. He seems to agree with quite a bit of what I had to say, but I'm going to go a step further with you. It's already done correctly in other areas of the country. NEPA puts on one of the best winter leagues in the country. Representing your state up there is a matter of pride. These guys travel. 10 guys go out there, and women, and they don't all play. But if you ain't playing, you're carrying the bag, or you're prepping meals for your team in between rounds. These are the kinds of camaraderie things that disc golf is based off of. We run a similar winter league down here in Houston. My company runs one. We get 4 teams a year, 40 players out there, and they're going 4 months out of the year on singular matches. I think the DGPT needs to learn from their mistakes from this past weekend, and it's time to diversify. I don't think the public knows what cool things disc golf does beyond just the DGPT. Let's see some different formats, and let's give these guys some real fun.
Good stuff, Matt. I love where you went with that, kind of driving the point home at the end. You kind of called out Kevin and said he agreed with everything you said. I would argue maybe Kevin had a small advantage going first, and you may have agreed with a lot of what he said. For that reason, Kevin is 2-0 here on Leppy Duels. He takes another win. So that sends us to duel number 5. That'll be between Seth and Matt. You're going to be back up. You guys are debating Am Worlds versus Am Nats. What holds more prestige in your mind, Seth?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you guys through a brief history of Seth Fendley playing disc golf. In 2006, I was introduced to the sport of disc golf. In 2009, I began to play competitively. And by 2011, I had my sights set on one thing, and that was going to Am Worlds, because Am Worlds was the obtainable. Am Worlds was the one that everyone talked about. To be completely honest, until I started following the pro side of the games, I did not even know that the US ADGC existed. And so I'm going to say just sort of emphatically from personal experience that Am Worlds is the one that stands out to everyone. It is the barometer that everyone stands to try to compete at and win. I'm going to take it a step further and say what's really wild is that there's a qualification process to both of these. The US side, I have no idea what that qualification is. I've never been told what it takes to qualify to play the US ADGC. But I have been told what it takes to compete at Am Worlds. It's pretty simple. You accumulate points throughout the season. Your point level allows you a different registration tier. And so I think that for most people, Am Worlds is the one that is more prestigious. It's the one that's more sought after.
All right, Matt. Seth is pretty adamant it's Am Worlds with more prestige. What's your take?
I'm going to agree with him, but I'm going to go a different direction with it. I do believe that Am Worlds is the more prestigious event for many of the reasons that he stated. However, I think that this very question is now being raised because the lines are beginning to get a little bit more blurred. And I think part of the reason that the lines are blurred is because part of what used to make Worlds awesome was it was a test of endurance and skill. You have cut the significant portion of play out of Worlds, and so the endurance factor to it is gone. I mean, what's this 1 round a day crap? Used to be 2 then 1, big shuffle, 2 then 1, cut, played badass, made cut number 2, go play your final 9. That is a marathon event. That is what made it so special. Now it's almost regressed back to closer to a USDGC, just single rounds.
All right, so Matt says, it's getting a little bit wimpy and the lines are being blurred. Seth, respond to his statements.
Yeah, I think that the reality here is that Matt is saying yes to AM Worlds, but then he's trying to tear it down a little bit and give US ADGC a little bit more credit. And where I went in full bore on AM Worlds, I think that regardless of the play, right, you take that away. First, Matt saying yes, AM Worlds still is better. But second, regardless of the play, the one thing that does stand out is that AM Worlds is open to everyone in the world. US AMs, while it may seem like it has some opportunity for people outside of the US to compete, it's mainly only known in the US, and so you get a wider base regardless of competition. You get a wider base at AM Worlds, which gives you more prestige because you are competing against more higher level play with a broader scope.
All right, Matt, bring it home.
There are players who remain AMs deliberately to play AM Worlds that one more time to take a crack at the title. There are just as many AMs who do the same thing for US ADGC. They remain in that amateur status for that shot at the title. Several titles are prestigious. The question is what separates them. And I think that the fact that the travel of Worlds Worlds makes it far better, although I'd like to see it get outside of the US a little bit more. I would also state, though, that I think that the endurance portion of it is part of what made it so awesome. I've played in 2 of them. I've caddied in 5. And frankly, nowadays, it's just not the same as it used to be. The feel is not the same. And I'd like to see it return to that. It's not tearing it down. It's giving them an opportunity to go back to our roots that made it successful to begin with.
Okay, so bottom line is you both agree the more prestigious event of the 2 is AM Worlds. Matt, I thought you had a great point saying, I'd like to see it move outside the United States. It's a Worlds tournament. Why can't it be somewhere else in the world? And the same goes for Pro Worlds as well. The same thought process there. I think the sport's big enough. Maybe that needs to happen in the near future. Seth, you made a great point about qualification. And the process being simple. Now, some people get left out of the registration portion for AM Worlds just because of the madhouse that it is to get signed up and register. But the process is simple and self-explanatory. AM Nats, not so much. I'm glad you brought that up. I think I'm going to give you the edge because of that. So Seth is at 2 wins this episode. That means he is tied with Kevin. And Wes has a chance to make it a 3-way tiebreak potentially here. But Kevin's got a chance to sweep in his first ever appearance here on Leppy Duels. Let's see what happens here in the final duel. We've got Wes leading the way. Kevin, you'll be up second. We're talking about the President's Cup rosters. They were just released. Obviously, the fan vote is yet to happen, so there could be a little bit of wiggle room and fluctuation there. But based on what we know now, Wes, who's the biggest snub? And who probably should have been left off the initial roster, in your opinion?
Yeah, the whole roster, I feel like I would like to talk about this more, but we don't only get a minute. But I feel like the biggest snub for me for this initial roster is Aaron Gossage. Finished second at Worlds last year, has been popping up off and on throughout the season, and nothing says more freedoms per foot instead of meters like that mustache, that goose rocks. You cannot tell me that does not scream America. And if you want somebody representing Team USA, you got a talented golfer. The courses over there suit his game really well. Big backhand, big forehand. He picks up his putting. He's absolutely up there with any of the other names that are on this list. And so Aaron Gossage for me, bonus points for the look and the mustache representing the USA. But I also just think he's one of the top players right now. Continues to show up and perform well, and I think he should have been on there. The person that I would take off to replace him is probably Eagle. The last time we saw Eagle compete in a tournament was at the end of May. Kind of health status in question. When he is healthy, he's playing well. But I think for right now, if I was going to cut somebody, it would be Eagle, and I would put in the Goose.
All right, so I saw Kevin's reaction there a little bit at the beginning. He was a little excited that you said Aaron Gossage. Kevin, why are you so excited?
I thought this was like a no-brainer on who they snubbed, but apparently not. Isaac Robinson isn't on the roster, correct? I don't think so. Isaac's already got a win. He won a major this year. He's third in Pro Tour points. He's constantly in the running, and this is his first time going to be over in Europe, and he's more excited than anybody here. And those courses are just, they just set up for these turnover backhands and these low shots to the woods. So I was so surprised that he didn't get on there. Now, I would almost agree with you on Eagle McMahon, except for the fact that he won the European Championship. He absolutely dominated it, averaging 1080-something. No, wait, yeah, 1080-something golf. You have to put him on the roster. Nate Sexton's the captain. I don't know exactly how they did the picking for that, but Nate Sexton just lost his cash streak, and he's in decline. So I'm a little surprised that he is the captain, and I'm a little bit more surprised that it wasn't Calvin who was more in that role. So the final answer is Nate should have been kicked off.
All right, completely different opinions from both of you on both fronts. I love it. Wes, double down on yours, but more importantly, tell us why Kevin is wrong.
Yeah, well, first off, the captain role is a non-playing role, so if you're going to put Calvin in a non-playing role, that seems foolish to me. Right now, Calvin's on the reserve. He probably should be in there as well, but he's on the roster, so he's not somebody who's been excluded from the roster. Isaac Robinson is a fine choice along with a lot of other guys, but if you're looking at players that have been just chomping at the bit lately, power index, I know Isaac's doing well in the Pro Tour points, but we just saw Goose have a great battle with James, and he continues to be up in that mix of top 5 players, and so I think that he deserves to be on the roster. If we look at the last calendar year, he's had a tremendous calendar year. And again, a little Team USA, a little America vibe with Goose's look, I think goes a little extra way to make this event, a fun team event, instead of just who's the best player to put on the roster.
Okay, Kevin, can you make this a clean sweep, or are we going to need a tiebreaker?
If we were to just go with who's a fun person to put on the roster, I think we would go with someone like Alden Harris, or maybe even someone like Silas Schultz. But if we're talking about we're trying to win the President's Cup, we have to go with someone like Isaac Robinson. He's proved himself again and again and again. He's actually won stuff on the Pro Tour. He can putt 15-footers and in. So I think Isaac is definitely the clear choice for being snubbed. And yeah, I think you saying that Eagle McMahon shouldn't be on the roster is just unbelievable. He's unbelievable in Europe. And yes, he is injured, but he was injured when he won the European Championship last year. He had a shoulder injury. He threw a left-handed shot instead of throwing the right-handed shot. So I have no doubt the Eagle's going to be at least healthy enough to compete in Europe this year, and he'll be able to compete at a high level.
Kevin, so I love your Isaac Robinson take. I personally think I would take him over Gossage, but that doesn't necessarily determine the winner of this duel. I think Wes's point about the American look, it's a fun one. I'm not going to give you the edge for that, though, either. I think the difference is what Wes called you out for, Kevin. You wanted Sexton off the team, but he's in a non-playing captaincy role. So for that reason, Wes, you're taking the win, and I apologize. Seth was only at 1 point with Matt. So this is a two-way tiebreak now that Wes has won the final duel. We've got Kevin and Wes back up again. Kevin, you're going to lead the way this time. Your tiebreak question this week is, if you could ask any pro disc golfer one specific question, who are you asking the question to, and what is your question, Kevin?
Well, this might be a spicy one, but it would probably be, I would ask Paul McBeth right now, and it would be, when do you think it's time to retire? I think Paul's had quite the unfortunate season so far. He hasn't even been in contention to win, besides, of course, the wraparound event with New World Championship. But he's just either battling an injury or he's just not in contention. So I would try to figure out, Paul, what's happening right now. And I think it is actually begging the question, when are disc golfers going to start figuring out when that retire age is? When is it time to stop competing? I mean, not everybody's Johnny McRae, who can quite literally compete till they're 51 or 52 years old, averaging 10:35 at Masters tournaments. But when is it going to be the point where Paul is unsatisfied with a top 10 finish and decided that he's happy with the money that he's made from Discraft and is going to live in his beautiful beach house in Jacksonville? So, yeah, that would be my question.
Fair question. Wes, where are you going?
Yeah, well, that's a silly question. He's on a 10-year, $10 million deal. Paul's not retiring anytime soon. I would like to tap into the athlete mindset. I think that's something that we as fans and a lot of people that are fans, again, are disc golfers. And so would love to tap into the athletic mindset of some of the elite players right now. And the person that comes to mind is Kristen Tatar. She's been playing absolutely lights out. A little bit of a slower week this last weekend, but just her demeanor on the course is absolutely incredible. And I think if all of us could hone just a little piece of that, we would all be better disc golfers. And so I would ask Kristen Tatar for a good reading list. I know she gets inspired from a lot of different other sources, whether it's sports or coaches or people that are in other sports. I would ask Kristen Tatar for a good reading list of things that have kind of helped her create her demeanor on the course and have helped her to be successful, because I think that she has really tapped into something, especially on the FPO side, that if we could all harness a little piece of, we would all be better for.
Interesting question, Wes. I love it. Kevin, you've got to heard what Wes had to say. Respond to that.
That's a great question. I've actually gotten to talk with Kristen a lot, and her mental game is next level. I mean, it's actually really smart, just the way she perceives the game. That's a great question. I do still think that my question is very valid. I think that our sport is so young, and that we just don't know when we're going to be, like, when the age is to tap out. Like, I guess the question is, do you just eventually keep throwing flippier discs as your arm speed goes down? Or do you move up in the age divisions, or when do you stop competing at the highest level? And I think Paul is probably the one person who is the most secure in his lifestyle right now to be able to ask, like, when are you done after the 10-year deal? Because he's going to be, 41, 42 years old? He could retire. He'll have the money to retire. So it's an interesting question. So, yeah.
All right, Wes, can you win episode 18 of Leppy Duels right here?
Yeah, I will give Kevin props. It is an interesting point. I think it's more of a conversation piece, though, or more of an interesting question that would be good for you. I can't imagine Paul coming out and publicly saying, "Yeah, I'm retiring after 10 years" or something. But sure, it would definitely be a fun question. But I think getting some knowledge, I like to share, I like to spread, I like to grow disc golf, and I think if I was able to gain something, from a source that Kristen has gained something from, and be able to share that with other people, I think that would go a long way. And so I just would love to tap into just a little piece of what she's got to not only improve my game, but to spread that to other people as well and help them improve their game too.
Great stuff from both of you. Fantastic tiebreaker question and answer. Kevin, I think, like Wes said there in his final rebuttal, I think it's a really interesting question. I don't know if the world would ever get a straight answer if the world were to ask, but if you were to ask that to Paul privately, maybe you'd get a straight answer, maybe not, but absolutely an interesting question. Wes, Kevin gave you props on your question. Kristen Tatar's mental game is next level, and yeah, asking her for a reading list would be really interesting, actually, just to pick her brain just a little bit. As far as differentiating between you two, it's a tough one. I think I'm going to give the edge to Wes, though. Wes is going to win this episode here. Kevin, you were this close to breaking through on your first win.
Never coming back. No, I'm just kidding.
Wes, you've got the floor. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I want to give props to Kevin. First episode, you've done better, I think, than anybody else on their first episode. So props to you, Kevin. This week, I just want to talk a little bit about a call to action for people out there. I go out to my local courses and I'll see trash or, just other little things, sticks in the fairway that could be picked up. And I see so many people that are just walking by that piece of trash instead of picking it up, putting it in the trash can, throwing the sticks off the fairway for the mower guys to have a cleaner path to get through. So I think it's really on all of us to take care of our courses. We're getting more and more courses as disc golf is growing. People like myself in my areas are focusing on getting more courses for players to play at. But what that means is that my time is a lot less spent on taking care of courses, and it's spent more on working on courses. And so it falls to the players, especially the people that are there 2 or 3 times a week enjoying that course, to just take one day to pick up some trash and to just make the course a better place. And if you and a couple of buddies just focus on taking care of a course, taking ownership of a course that you spend so many hours enjoying, it's not only going to benefit you for the course being better, but it's going to benefit the other people at the course. So I think as disc golf continues to grow and we're getting more courses, I would just really love to see more people chipping in and helping out at their local courses so that we can all enjoy this beautiful game, these beautiful properties that we have to play.
Well said, Wes. Keep your courses clean at home, everybody. I'm glad you made that statement. That's important stuff. So congrats again to you on another win here on Leppy Duels. Thanks for joining us today, Kevin. You were fantastic. Matt, Seth, thanks for being with us as well. We appreciate both of you always on the show. Everyone at home, thanks to you guys for being with us. Enjoy your weekend. Check out the Des Moines Challenge. See how Kevin's doing. And we will catch you all next weekend.